Howdy readers, I'm Jason, this is Chapter and Verse, and strangely, I'm coming to you with a tag video on Tag Tuesday, and I can't say for sure, but I don't think I have ever actually done a tag on Tag Tuesday, and this one was kind of an accident. I had been planning to do it last night, but I had some kind of home repair stuff that needed to get done, so there it is. I'm going to do the Boujee Booktuber Tag, which was created by Olive over at abookolive, and I don't think anybody has tagged me. It could be that somebody has, but I don't remember. But anyway, before we get into it, before we get into the questions, I just wanted to share with you guys that all right, so we have not had here in Casper, Wyoming, we have not had our first snow yet. Today, the high temperature was 74 degrees Fahrenheit, and I just wanted to show you guys the weather forecast for the next few days on my phone. So there it is in Fahrenheit, and there it is in Celsius. So yeah, it was quite warm today. It was like a nice, cool summer day. And 48 hours from now, it's going to be a hell of a lot colder. And the weather forecast, which was initially calling for like 3 to 5 inches of snow for Casper, is now calling for 8 to 12 inches of snow for Casper, with more on the mountain, which is just south of us. So anyway, that's not going to be a lot of fun to drive to work in on Thursday. Winter's coming. I am not quite ready for it. I'm almost there, but I would really rather not have a foot of snow when all of the trees in town still have their leaves on them. Most of the trees, in fact, haven't even started turning gold yet. So it's going to be a wet snow, it's going to be a heavy snow, and I'm really worried for all of the tree limbs in town, because that happens here. 6 years ago, we had a big wet snow in September, and it just killed a shit ton of trees. I mean, there were huge limbs broken off laying in the street. There were power lines down. It was ugly. So I pray to God that doesn't happen this time. Let's talk money with the Boujee Booktuber Tag. So the first question is, what is your average monthly budget for books? So Kelly and I don't have a monthly budget. We're buying more books now since we've joined BookTube, even though I think I swore that we wouldn't, but it just happens. Since we don't have a monthly budget for books, and I didn't want to just say what everybody else has been saying, in that, well, I'm comfortable enough in my life financially that if I see a book I want, I can just get it. While that's true, I thought it would be more interesting to total up the money that we've spent this year on books, by which I mean mostly the money that I've spent this year on books, and then divide it into 9 months, just to come up with a kind of rough average of how much money we have spent per month in 2019 on books. And that dollar amount is approximately $54 a month. These first 9 months of 2019. On average, we have spent $54 to $56 a month on books. Some months we don't buy anything. Other months we may buy $80 worth of books. So it really depends on the month. But I thought that would be a fun, if alarming, way to approach that question. Number 2, what is the most you've ever spent in a bookstore? So most of you, I think, know that both Kelly and myself used to work for Barnes & Noble. And as an employee at Barnes & Noble, you have 30% discount, and then twice a year, I think we got 50% off twice a year, once in the summer, once right before Christmas. There was one time that Kelly and I ordered in, I think it was 20 copies of a book called Blue Like Jazz by Donald Miller, that we were just both really big fans of, and we wanted to just kind of spread the love with that book, and we wanted to just give it away to people, friends that we knew, occasionally strangers. I think one of the apartments that we moved out of, we actually left a copy in that apartment for the next tenant to find and keep. But I think after our discount, God, I don't know how much that was. I want to say that was $180 maybe, something like that. As for myself, or for myself and Kelly, how much have I spent on just myself or myself and Kelly in a bookstore at one time? And that number is probably closer to like $120, $130. Could be as much as $140, but I doubt it. Number 3, are you willing to pay full price for a brand new release, or will you wait until you have a coupon or there's a sale? I don't really, I mean, if I get a coupon and it's there and I'm going to be going to the bookstore anyway, I will use it, but I don't wait for sales in large part because you don't really know when they're coming up. The only time I do wait for sales is with the twice a year Barnes & Noble Criterion sale, where Criterion DVDs and Blu-rays, which are really expensive, are half off. And so I never buy Criterion if it's not during those sales. And when those sales roll around, I usually get at least a couple, sometimes 3 or 4 DVDs or Blu-rays. But as for books, willing to pay full price for a brand new release? Absolutely. Of course, it depends on the book. But as we all know, The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel is coming out next March. And its list price, its retail price, I think is going to be $30 here in the States. Pre-order price, I want to say it's like $26. But yeah, even if that book was $40 and there were no discounts or anything like that, I would pay $40 and I wouldn't think twice about it. In fact, it's probably going to come out to something like that, $40. Because even though the pre-order price is $26, if you want to have the book the day it's released, you can pay for, I don't know, 2-day shipping or something like this, and they'll actually ship it before it officially comes out. I'm not sure how they can get away with that, especially if a book has been embargoed with strict on sale dates, which I'm sure that one will. But there it is. I'm going to do everything in my power to have that book in my possession on, I think it's March 10th is when it comes out here in the States. So yes, I would pay full price for a new book without thinking twice. Number 4, would you rather buy one new book or several less expensive used copies? For me, which could probably be inferred from my answer to the previous question, it's always about the book. It's not really ever about the deal. It's not really ever about the volume of books that I can get. Because frankly, like if I could get one book for $30 that is right at the top of my list, I want that book more than anything. I want to start reading it right now, etc., etc. Or I could go browse through Bargain and maybe find 5 books that I also kind of want, but really could live without if push came to shove. There's no way I would buy those 5 books that were, $6 each over the new Hilary Mantel. There's just no way. That would be crazy. Number 5, what do you think is a reasonable price for a new hardback book? Paperback, ebook. So let's just get ebooks out of the way. I don't own a Kindle. I have never read a book in an electronic format ever, and I don't ever intend to, so I really have no idea how much they cost or should cost. I know that there have been some controversies about that, but I'm just going to steer clear of those waters. As for hardcovers and trade paperbacks, I'd say hardcover would be $24. And the reason I say that is because many hardcovers are still $24. So I just recently bought Women Talking by Miriam Taves, and it was $24. And I paid full price for it. Again, this copy of John le Carré's The Night Manager. Okay, this came out in 1993, and its price on its dust jacket was $24. So I really feel like from the early to mid 90s to now, the prices for hardcovers have been pretty stable, and I'm fine with those prices. I'm also fine with prices being slightly higher, like $30 for the Hilary Mantel. Like that book's going to be almost 900 pages long, right? That costs money to produce, and so that's fine with me. If William T. Vollmann's new novel is like a mazillion pages and, it's bound in calfskin or something like that, and they want to charge $50 for it, I think that's fair. I wouldn't buy it, but that's still fair. So let's see, what is the next question? Oh, paperbacks. Yeah, I didn't even get to that. Half of that, $12, right? I remember not too long ago when paperbacks were still like $12, $11 to $13. So I would be pleased with that. I still remember when trade paperbacks were $9 and $10 brand new. I'd prefer that, but I would be just fine with 12. I could live with that. Number 6, is a signed book worth more to you? How about a first edition? Yeah, I think I'm in a minority on this. I'm a real dork. I'm kind of a collector and not just an amasser of books, but I like first editions. I'm not sure why. It has nothing to do with the monetary value that they may have. And I love signed copies, even if they're not inscribed to me. I love the idea that the writer of that book, that his or her hand was touching that page, was literally like on that page, scrawling the name across in ink. There's something really intimate about that to me and really dear. It's a writer giving beyond, how long it took them to write the book. It's a writer giving of their time to their fans, to their admirers. And I appreciate that. Even if I'm not the one there getting the signature, even if I'm just buying it after the fact, a writer took the time to do that. And we might say, oh, well, how long does it take to sign your name? Oh, it doesn't take long. But if you're doing it hundreds of times, I'm sure in the end, it's something of an inconvenience. I wouldn't like to do that. So I appreciate when writers will do that. And here I have the first British edition of Peter Carey's Parrot and Olivier in America. And for those of you who watch my channel and have been curious to read your first Peter Carey, you may want to know that I'm going to be hosting a read-along of this book, probably next summer. So keep that in mind. But again, this is a first edition, the first British edition, and it is signed. And this was given to me by my best friend Ben and his wife Anna. And it's incredibly dear to me for that reason as well. So it's got 3 things going for it: first edition, signature, and as a gift from dear friends. So number 7, what is your most valuable book? Sentimental or actual value? So sentimental, I'm just briefly going to show you 3. So the first one here is a book I've showed recently, and this is Sarah Waters's The Night Watch. And this is sentimentally valuable to me because Sarah herself sent Kelly and I this copy. And she didn't just send it to us, but she inscribed it to us as a wedding gift, which I may or may not have shown on the channel before. But anyhow, yeah, she wrote to Jason and Kelly, wishing you lots of love and happiness and many hours of reading, Sarah Waters. So that book is quite dear to me. And then this book, this is The Bridges of Madison County. This book, back when it was published, was kind of a joke. More snobbish readers just raked this thing over the coals. And I'll be the first to say that Robert James Waller isn't much of a prose stylist by any stretch of the imagination. But this book tells a really wonderful story, and it tells it well. The writing may not be much to write home about, but the story itself is magnificent. If it weren't, it wouldn't have made a good movie. And it made an extraordinary movie, directed by Clint Eastwood and starring Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep. It's one of the best things that Clint Eastwood's ever directed. But my mother read this book back when it was published, and just loved it to pieces and cried and was so moved by it, and made me curious about it. And she gave me her copy, and she inscribed the inside of it as well. And yeah, I'm not going to read that to you because that's just, yeah, it's personal. And it's not a great book, but it's a good book in many ways. And I will never, ever, ever get rid of it. And then the last one I wanted to show you guys, and so again, it's a book I featured on this channel before. This is our edition of The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. And this book, in addition to just being beautiful, I mean, absolutely gorgeous. 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, Kelly and I had to euthanize, had to put to sleep our cat Harry. He had in the spring, he developed a condition called it's called fluted. It stands for feline lower urinary tract disorder or something like this. And yeah, we tried numerous things before we resorted to surgery to try to repair this problem that he was having. And it just wasn't working, and so we opted for the surgery, which we had to go down to Fort Collins to have done. The veterinary hospital at CSU, Colorado State University, which is one of the best veterinary hospitals in the country. It's like the Mayo Clinic for animals. And Harry had the surgery, and he just developed over a period of 3 or 4 months. It just didn't heal properly. And the doctors couldn't understand what had happened. They couldn't understand why he was still bleeding, but he had a cone on for 4 months, and it looked like the cone was never going to come off. And yeah, he was never going to be able to clean himself or anything like this. And it was a hellish decision to make. But, you know, when we saw the suffering that he was going through, and he was still a pretty happy cat, and he was still quite young when he was 2. You know, but for him to never be able to see anything to the sides, and just the drugs were just affecting his moods, and he became really, really aggressive with our other cat, and with Blue, and it just wasn't going to work. And the vets had no idea what to do. They didn't know how to fix it because they'd never seen you know, this particular result from that surgery before. And anyway, this was the book. Kelly and I both, I think Kelly read this just before Harry died, and I think I read it just after Harry died, and I may have been reading it when Harry died. And the book is just so beautiful. It's just exquisite, and it's so wise, I think, about love and about friendship and companionship. So this will always be dear to me for that reason. It will always have that association with one of the most wonderful cats that anyone can ever have known. All right, let's see. Moving on. Number 8. Will you pay more for a cover or for an edition that you like better? Yes, I will pay more for a cover that I like better. Absolutely. Number 9. What physical characteristics does a good quality book have? There are a handful of these. Acid-free paper is a must. Although, you know, I'll buy a book if it doesn't have acid-free paper, but ideally it would. A sewn or well-glued binding. I have a personal preference for matte finish covers, whether it's trade paperback, French flaps or what have you, or dust jacket. I really love a matte finish. I don't know why exactly. And also good ink, because I use those little post-it sticky tabs that you see in my book sometimes. And some books, including Penguin Classics, as much as I love Penguin Classics, the quality of their ink is shit. Some books, yeah, if you leave those tabs on there for too long, for weeks or months, or not even that long, and you lift it off, it takes the word with it. The ink of the word, like it doesn't tear a hole in the page or anything, but it takes the ink of the word with it, which it should not do. Let's see, number 10. If you won the lottery, and I'm talking big lottery, like $300 million or $400 million or more, what bookish things would you do with the money? So Robert from Barter Hordes did a version of this tag, and he talked about his experience as an owner of an independent bookstore for 2 or 3 years. His video is amazing. It's one of the best videos I've seen this year. I will try to remember to link to it in the description box below. And he talked about the hardships of owning an independent bookstore. And here's the thing. I would never open an independent bookstore unless I didn't rely on it in any way, shape, or form for my well-being, for my livelihood. If it could just be fun, if it could just be something I did as a hobby, a place for people to gather, come in, browse books, buy books, hang out and talk about books, and I could just sit in there all day and read, ring books up as necessary, recommend books to people. I would have a couple of TVs in the place, right, on quietly. Maybe on one of the TVs I'd have adaptations of novels, right? And on the other TV I would run booktube videos. And if people ask me, oh, what YouTube channel is that? I would say, oh, that's a booktube channel, and that is so-and-so. That is Brian from Bookish. You should look him up. But that would be one thing that I would do. And then the other thing that I would do is I would adopt 1 or 2 prison libraries, and I would kind of appoint myself, if possible, and with a large enough gift of money, I'm sure that would be possible, curator of those prison libraries. And I would make sure that the inmates in those prisons had access to really, really wonderful stuff. Really wonderful stuff. And in addition to that, I would maybe even try to put together literature programs in those prisons to assist in the rehabilitation of those inmates. Yeah, I mean, it's been done in this country before. The documentary Shakespeare Behind Bars is about one such program. So I think that would be wonderful. Scary, but wonderful to be in charge of. And then bonus question, give us an image, actual or mental, of your dream home library. It is the room that I film almost all of my videos in. It's the room where I'm at right now. So you guys have seen it. In a perfect world, and eventually this will be the case, I'd like us to repaint the walls in here. Not really. Kelly loves light blue, and this is the color the walls were painted when we bought the house. But it doesn't really fit the dark bookcases and the brown floor and everything. So I'd like to repaint the walls and the ceiling at some point in the future. And I'd love 1 or 2 more bookcases kind of Jenga'd in here somehow. In a way that didn't feel cramped. So yeah, that would be my ideal home library. So lastly, I'm going to tag a few people. Apparently this is not terribly fashionable anymore to tag people. We're just meant to do the tags that we want to do. And I think that's certainly true. There are tags that I do not having been tagged. This is one of them, to the best of my knowledge. But I think tagging people can be fun because maybe they hadn't thought about doing that tag, or maybe they thought that they didn't want to do that tag. But then when someone tags them, they sit down and they start thinking about the questions, and it pushes them, as all tags do, through the exercise that is that tag. And there's always something unexpected and rewarding about it. So I'm going to tag Rick from Another Book Vlog, and Al from Big Al Books, one of my partners in the March of the Mammoth crime that we inflicted on you guys this year and plan to inflict on you again next year. And then lastly, I'm going to tag a married couple who have a brand new channel, and it's one of these hybrid channels. It's like part booktube channel, part cinema channel, part almost kind of author tube channel. But anyway, it's called Seeking Stories, and their names are Ryan and Kristen. And I love watching them together on screen in particular. The videos with Ryan talking about movies and such are wonderful as well, but there's a wonderful chemistry between him and his wife, and I just absolutely love watching the videos with the two of them together. So I would like to hear their answers to these questions. I will put the questions in the description box below. And thank you guys for joining me on a tag on Tag Tuesday. I will talk to you again very soon. Adios.